The air inside Harvest and Hearth carried the warm, earthy scent of roasted root vegetables and fresh-baked sourdough, mingling with the faint tang of craft beer from the bar. It was a Friday evening in early October, and the arts district of Asheville, North Carolina, hummed with its usual eclectic energy. Outside, the streets were alive with buskers strumming guitars, tourists snapping photos of murals, and locals weaving through the crowds with coffee cups in hand. Inside the restaurant, reclaimed wood tables glowed under Edison bulb chandeliers, casting a soft amber light across the packed dining room. The clink of glasses and the low murmur of conversation blended with a distant acoustic cover of a Fleetwood Mac song, played live by a duo in the corner. It was the kind of night where everything felt alive, electric, like the city itself was breathing. Maya Jackson moved through the chaos with the kind of grace that came from 3 years of serving tables. At 28, she had mastered the art of balancing a tray of drinks in one hand while jotting down orders with the other, all without breaking her stride. Her dark hair was pulled back into a neat ponytail, and her black apron was tied snugly around her waist, a pen tucked behind her ear. Her name tag, slightly worn at the edges, read Maya in simple block letters. She was a single mother, a night school student, and a woman who knew how to keep her cool under pressure. Tonight, her section was full 6 tables, all demanding attention. A family of 4 at table 3 wanted extra napkins. A couple at table 5 was debating the wine list. And Clara, a regular in her 70s who always ordered the kale salad, was at table 7, smiling warmly as Maya refilled her water. "You're a saint, Maya," Clara said, her voice soft but clear, her silver hair catching the light. "This place is a zoo tonight." Maya flashed a quick smile, the kind that said she appreciated the sentiment but didn't have time to linger. "Just another Friday, Miss Clara. You need anything else with that salad?" Clara shook her head. "Just keep doing what you're doing, dear. You make it look easy." It wasn't easy. Maya's feet ached in her worn sneakers, and her mind was already half on the sociology paper due Monday for her night class. She was saving every tip for her daughter Zoe, who needed new school shoes, and for the tuition payment that loomed at the end of the month. But she didn't let it show. Not here. Harvest and Hearth was her stage, and she played her role, well, efficient, warm, unflappable. She wove through the dining room, dropping off a basket of cornbread at table 4, when a sharp voice cut through the hum. "Excuse me, hello." It wasn't a question, more like a command, barked from table 10 near the window. Maya turned, her order pad still in hand, and met the eyes of a man in his early 50s. He had a sharp jawline, graying hair slicked back, and a navy suit that screamed money. His companion, a younger man in a crisp button-down, stared at his phone, avoiding the scene. The older man's expression was impatient, his fingers drumming on the table. "I'll be right with you, sir," Maya said, her voice steady, her smile practiced but genuine. "Just finishing up here." "Finishing up," the man repeated, his tone laced with disbelief. "I've been sitting here for 10 minutes. Do you even know how to do your job? Or is this just a side hustle for you?" The words landed like a slap, sharp and public. A few heads turned. Clara at table 7, a young couple at table 9. Maya's smile didn't waver, though her grip on the order pad tightened slightly. "I'll get to you in just a moment, sir. Thank you for your patience." She turned back to table 4, scribbling the last of their dessert. "Order a slice of pecan pie and 2 coffees." She could feel the man's eyes boring into her back, but she didn't rush. She finished the order, slipped the ticket into her apron, and headed toward the kitchen. Her steps measured. It was a small act, choosing to complete one task before bending to his demands, but it was deliberate. Maya had dealt with customers like him before, entitled, loud, quick to assume they owned the room. She wasn't about to let this one rattle her dot in the kitchen. The air was thick with steam and the clatter of pans. Line cooks shouted orders over the sizzle of grills, and Maya handed her ticket to the expediter. "Javier, table 4, dessert, rush," she said, her voice calm despite the knot in her chest. Javier glanced at her. "You good, Maya?" Sounded like a jerk out there. She gave a small shrug. "Nothing new, just another guy who thinks he's the main character." Javier snorted, sliding the ticket into the queue. Maya took a deep breath, steadied herself, and grabbed 2 glasses of water from the station. She headed back to table 10, her expression neutral but professional. The man was still there, his posture rigid, his fingers now tapping faster. His companion looked up briefly, then back at his phone. as if distancing himself from whatever was coming. "Here you go," Maya said, setting the waters down with care. "Thank you for waiting. What can I get started for you?" The man didn't look at her. He stared straight ahead, his lips curling into a smirk. "Well, isn't that impressive? You can carry water and talk at the same time. Should I give you a gold star?" The younger man winced, his eyes flicking to Maya, then away. A woman at table 9 paused mid-bite, her fork hovering. Clara's head turned slightly, her brow furrowing. Maya didn't flinch. Her voice stayed even, her pen poised over her pad. "Would you like sparkling or still, sir?" That's when he laughed, a sharp, hollow sound that didn't match the warmth of the room. He finally turned to her, his eyes cold. "You know, if people like you worked half as hard as you complain, you might actually get somewhere." The room didn't just quiet, it froze. A waiter pouring wine at table 6 stopped, the bottle tilted midair. A spoon clinked against a bowl at table 8, and no one moved to pick it up. The acoustic duo in the corner seemed to falter, the guitar strumming just a beat slower. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it, loud and deliberate, like he wanted the whole restaurant to hear, like he was sure no one would challenge him. Maya stood still, her pen still in hand, her order pad half open, her eyes locked on his, not angry, not scared, just steady. She inhaled slowly through her nose, her lips parting as if to speak, but she paused. The silence stretched, heavy and thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. Clara set her glass down gently. The young couple at table 9 exchanged a glance. Even the bartender, Leela, stopped shaking a cocktail, her eyes darting to Maya. "Did you hear me?" the man asked, tilting his head like he was testing her. "Or do I need to say it slower?" Maya's jaw tightened, just a fraction. "I heard you, sir," she said, her voice clear and calm. "And I'm going to ask you again, sparkling or still." He scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "Is this your version of customer service? Sassy and slow? I'm guessing you skipped the training, huh? Too busy posting on social media about how tough your life is." The second blow landed, just as loud, just as public. The younger man at the table shifted uncomfortably, muttering, "Ethan, maybe we should just know." Ethan snapped, not even glancing at him. "I want to know what kind of place this is. Letting people like her think they can talk back." Maya set her notepad down slowly, tucking it into her apron pocket. She clasped her hands in front of her, standing straight, the way her mother had taught her to when facing someone who'd already made up their mind about you. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, her voice steady as stone. "The kitchen's backed up, but I'll get your order in. I'd recommend the roasted trout tonight. It's fresh, roasted." Ethan grinned, his tone mocking. Fitting choice. That was the third strike. The line had been crossed, and it wasn't even a line anymore. It was a 2-6-2025. The silence that followed wasn't just shock. It was a kind of awe, like the room had collectively held its breath. Ethan blinked, his smirk faltering for a fraction of a second. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The younger man at the table stared at Maya, his expression a mix of embarrassment and admiration. Clara sat back in her chair, her eyes sharp with quiet pride. And then, from a booth in the corner, someone let out a soft, "Well, damn." The tension didn't break, it shifted. The air was still heavy, but quieter now, like the calm after a thunderclap. Ethan wasn't the type to let it go, though. His face hardened, his eyes narrowing as he stood, his chair scraping against the wood floor. "You think that was clever?" he said, his voice lower now, but shaky. "You think one little line makes you special?" Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. The room had already spoken for her. Marcus, the manager, stepped forward from the host stand. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, his shirt tucked tight, his expression calm but firm. He rarely intervened unless things got physical, but this was different. "Is there a problem here, sir?" he asked, positioning himself just behind Maya. Ethan straightened, trying to reclaim his authority. "Yeah, there's a problem. I've been insulted in your establishment, publicly." Marcus didn't blink. His eyes stayed on Ethan. "By whom?" "Because from where I'm standing, I saw a woman doing her job and a man trying to tear her down for it." The younger man, whose name, Maya later learned, was David, looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. "She didn't do anything wrong, Ethan." Ethan turned on him, his face reddening. "Oh, so you're on her side now." "I'm not on anyone's side," David said, his tone quiet but firm. "I just don't want to be part of this." The shift was palpable. The diners weren't just watching, they were judging. Not because of one comment, but because Ethan had revealed something about himself that no amount of wealth could mask. Clara's eyes met Maya's, a silent nod of solidarity. The couple at table 9 resumed eating, but their glances lingered on Maya, not Ethan. "I'd like you to lower your voice," Marcus said, his tone even but unyielding. "Or we can continue this outside." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You're kicking me out?" "No," Marcus replied. "I'm giving you the chance to stay with respect." That's when Ethan lost it. "Oh, spare me the act," he spat, his voice rising again. "Everyone in here pretending they're above it all, clapping for the server like she's some hero. You all want to feel good about yourselves. Fine, give her a medal on your way back to your overpriced lofts." Woman at table 8 gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Ethan looked around, daring someone to speak. No one did, not because they agreed, but because they didn't need to. Maya had already won. Marcus stepped closer. "Sir." But Maya spoke first, her voice softer now, but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "No one's clapping, Mr. Caldwell. They're just watching you. Show them who you are." Ethan stared at her, waiting for her to back down. She didn't. He grabbed his jacket from the chair, his movements jerky, and turned to David. "You coming?" David stood, grabbed his phone, and said, "I'll get an Uber." He didn't meet Ethan's eyes. Ethan stormed toward the exit, the glass door slamming behind him. The tension didn't vanish entirely, but it eased, like the room could finally breathe again. Clara raised her glass, slightly toward Maya, not a toast, but an acknowledgement. One by one, diners returned to their meals, their whispers carrying a new weight. Marcus looked at Maya. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm fine." He gave a curt nod and walked back to the host stand. But the night wasn't over. Not for Maya, and not for the people who'd witnessed it. The glass doors slammed still lingered in the air, like the final note of a song no one wanted to hear again. Inside Harvest and Hearth, the dining room exhaled, forks scraped against plates, conversations resumed in low murmurs, and the acoustic duo in the corner picked up their rhythm, strumming a soft rendition of Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi. But the energy had shifted, like a room settling after a storm. Maya Jackson stood by table 10, the empty chair where Ethan Caldwell had sat still, angled awkwardly from his exit. Her hands were steady, her apron still neatly tied, but her chest felt tight, like she'd been holding her breath too long. She turned back to her section, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the polished wood floor. Table 3 needed their check. Table 5 wanted another round of IPAs, and Clara, the retired librarian at table 7, was watching her with a look that was equal parts pride and concern. Maya caught her eye and offered a small nod, a silent assurance that she was fine. She wasn't, not entirely, but she'd learned long ago to keep moving, to let the work carry her through. Lila, the bartender, leaned over the counter as Maya passed by with the tray of empty glasses. "Girl, you okay?" she whispered, her braids swinging as she shook her head in disbelief. "That man was a whole mess." Maya gave a half smile, setting the tray down. "Yeah, well, messes clean up eventually." Lila raised an eyebrow. "You cleaned that one up real quick. That line, 'They're just watching you, show them who you are.'" "Maya, I'm framing that." Maya chuckled, but it was short, more reflex than joy. "I just wanted him to order or leave." "Well, you got the second one," Leela said, pouring a shot of bourbon for a customer, "and you did it without throwing a single punch. Respect." Maya didn't respond. She grabbed a pitcher of water and moved back to her section, refilling glasses and clearing plates. But she could feel the eyes on her, not judgmental, not pitying, but curious, like the diners were seeing her for the first time. At table 9, the young couple who'd paused during Ethan's tirade left a $50 tip on a $30 bill, with a note scrawled on the receipt, "You're a badass." Table 5, the IPA drinkers, slipped her an extra $20 with a quiet, "Keep being you," and Clara, as she paid her check, pressed a folded $10 bill into Maya's hand. "For Zoe," she said softly, "and for you, for handling that with more grace than he deserved." "Thank you, Miss Clara," Maya said, her voice steady but her throat tight. She tucked the bill into her apron, her fingers brushing against the order pad where she'd written nothing during Ethan's outburst. She didn't know why that moment stuck with her, the blank page, the pen still in her hand. like she'd been ready to take an order that never came. As the night wore on, the restaurant began to thin out. The dinner rush gave way to late-night stragglers, locales, nursing cocktails, a few tourists lingering over dessert. Maya was wiping down a table when David, Ethan's colleague, approached her. He'd stayed behind, moving to the bar after Ethan's exit, and now he stood with his hands in his pockets, his expression sheepish. "Mind if I say something?" he asked, his voice low. Maya straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sure." He hesitated, glancing at the floor before meeting her eyes. "I'm sorry I didn't say more back there. I should have shut him down sooner. Ethan, he's like that a lot. People usually just let it slide." Maya tilted her head slightly, studying him. "But you didn't. Not completely. You stayed." David's shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Yeah, but I still let him drag me into that. I'm sorry." She nodded, her expression softening. "It's okay. You don't have to carry his weight." He gave a small, grateful smile. "For what it's worth, you handled that better than anyone I've ever seen. I hope you know that." Maya didn't respond right away. She just nodded again, then turned back to her table. The conversation was short, but it lingered, like a small stone dropped into still water. She didn't need his apology, but it meant something that he'd offered it. By the time the last table cleared out, the restaurant was quiet, the lights dimmed. Maya untied her apron, her fingers moving automatically as she counted her tips in the back. The extra cash from the night's diners pushed her total higher than usual, enough for Zoe's shoes and maybe a little extra for the electric bill. She slipped the bills into her wallet, grabbed her jacket, and headed for the employee exit. The alley behind Harvest and Hearth was cool and quiet, the October air sharp against her skin. A single street lamp cast a yellow glow over the dumpster and a stack of crates where Javier, the expediter, was taking a smoke break. He looked up as she stepped out, his phone glowing in his hand. "You famous yet?" he teased, exhaling a cloud of smoke. Maya smirked, leaning against the wall. "Don't start." "I'm serious," he said, holding up his phone. "Check this out." She frowned, stepping closer. He turned the screen toward her, and there it was, a grainy video, clearly shot from a diner's phone. It started with Ethan's voice, loud and cutting. "If people like you worked half as hard as you complain." The camera caught Maya's face, calm and steady, her eyes locked on him. Then her voice, clear and soft. "No one's clapping, Mr. Caldwell. They're just watching you show them who you are." The clip ended there, the caption on the post reading, "Server shuts down arrogant millionaire," with one line, "Absolute queen." It had 2,000 likes, 500 retweets, and comments piling up by the second. Maya blinked at the screen, her stomach twisting. "Who posted this?" Javier shrugged. "Some guy at table 12, I think. It's blowing up on X." She handed the phone back, her fingers cold. "I didn't even know anyone was recording." "Doesn't matter," Javier said, pocketing his phone. "You said what you said, and it hit. People don't forget that." Maya didn't respond. She pulled her jacket tighter around her and started walking toward her car, a beat-up Honda, parked at the end of the alley. The sky above was dark, speckled with stars, and the distant hum of Asheville's nightlife felt far away. Her phone buzzed in her Paquita text from her best friend, Tasha. "Tasha girl, you see this video? You're trending. Call me ASAP." Maya sighed, ignoring the text for now. She climbed into her car, the familiar creak of the driver's seat grounding her. She sat there for a moment, staring at the dashboard, the weight of the night settling in. She hadn't meant to be a hero or a symbol. She'd just wanted to do her job, to get through the shift, to make it home to Zoe. But now her words were out there, bouncing across the internet, turning into something bigger than she'd ever intended. When she got home, Zoe was already asleep, sprawled across the couch with a math workbook open on her chest. Maya's mother, Denise, was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of tea. She looked up as Maya dropped her keys on the counter. "Rough night?" Denise asked, her eyes sharp but kind. Maya shrugged, kicking off her sneakers. "Something like that." Denise raised an eyebrow. "Tasha called. Said you're some kind of internet superstar now." Maya groaned, sinking into a chair. "It's not like that, Ma. Just, a customer got loud, and I said something back. Someone recorded it." Denise set a mug of tea in front of her, the steam curling upward. "You stood up for yourself." "I guess," Maya said, wrapping her hands around the mug. "Didn't feel like standing up. Felt like surviving." Denise nodded, her expression unreadable. "Sometimes that's the same thing." Maya sipped the tea, the warmth easing the knot in her chest. She didn't tell her mother about the tips, the notes, or the way Clara's words had stuck with her. She didn't mention the video, the likes, the comments calling her a queen. It felt too big, too unreal. She just wanted to be Maya Mom's student, Servanaut, a story for strangers to dissect. But the internet didn't care about what she wanted. By the time she checked her phone before bed, her Instagram had jumped from 600 followers to over 5,000. Notifications stacked up like bricks. Comments, DMS, tags. This is how you handle a bully. I'm sending this to my boss. Can I Venmo you a coffee? She scrolled through a few, her thumb hovering over the screen. One comment stood out, from a woman in Charlotte. You didn't just shut him down. You showed us how to stand up without losing yourself. Maya locked her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. She lay back, staring at the ceiling, the faint glow of streetlights filtering through the blinds. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt tired, exposed, like someone had turned a spotlight on her without asking. But somewhere, deep down, there was a spark, small, steady, like the ember of a fire that hadn't gone out. The next morning, Harvest and Hearth was busier than usual. The phone rang off the hook before the doors even opened, and Marcus was already in the office, fielding calls from local reporters. Maya clocked in, tying her apron with the same mechanical precision as always, but she could feel the difference. The other servers whispered as she walked by, not maliciously, but with a kind of awe. Leela greeted her with a fist bump. Morning, legend. Stop it, Maya said, but she couldn't help a small smile. Marcus pulled her aside before the lunch rush. You okay with all this? He asked, his arms crossed. The videos everywhere. News stations are calling. Maya frowned. What do they want? Interviews, mostly, Marcus said. One offered to pay you for a 10-minute segment. She shook her head. I'm not doing that. I just want to work. He nodded, unsurprised. Figured. Just let me know if it gets too much. I'll handle the calls. Thanks, she said, already turning back to the dining room. By noon, the restaurant was packed, not just with regulars, but with new faces, people who'd seen the video, who'd read the posts. Some came to eat, others to catch a glimpse of the server who'd gone viral. Maya felt their eyes, their whispers, but she kept moving, taking orders, clearing plates, refilling drinks. She didn't want their attention, but she couldn't escape it. The lunch rush at Harvest and Hearth on Saturday was relentless. Tables turned over faster than usual, and the wait list stretched out the door, spilling onto the sidewalk where tourists and locals mingled under the crisp October sun. Maya Jackson moved through the dining room like a dancer in a familiar routine, balancing plates of braised pork sliders and kale salads, her order pad tucked into her apron. But the rhythm felt off, like a song played just a half beat too fast. The diners weren't just eating, they were watching. Some stole glances, others stared openly, their phones subtly angled as if waiting for her to do something noteworthy again. She could feel the weight of their expectations, heavy as a second apron. By noon, her phone, tucked in her locker in the break room, had buzzed so many times she'd turned it to silent. She hadn't checked it since last night, when her Instagram followers had climbed past 5,000 and the notifications had started to blur together. She didn't want to know how many more had piled up. She just wanted to get through her shift, to lose herself in the familiar cadence of taking orders and clearing tables. But the world outside Harvest and Hearth had other plans. Leela, behind the bar, was shaking a cocktail when she caught Maya's eye. You see the news van outside, she said, nodding toward the window. Channel 13's here, probably for you. Maya's stomach twisted. She glanced out the window, catching a glimpse of a white van with a satellite dish parked across the street. A reporter in a blazer was talking to a cameraman, gesturing toward the restaurant. Great, Maya muttered, wiping down a table. Just what I need. They're calling you the Asheville Queen, Lila said, grinning. Saw it on X this morning. Hashtag and everything. Maya rolled her eyes, but the knot in her chest tightened. I'm not a queen, I'm a server. Yeah, a server, who shut down a billionaire with one sentence, Leela said, pouring the cocktail into a glass. That's queen energy, whether you like it or not. Maya didn't respond. She grabbed a tray of drinks for table 4 and moved back into the dining room, her steps deliberate, but the whispers followed her. A woman at table 6 leaned to her friend, saying, That's her, right, from the video. A man at the bar took a photo when he thought she wasn't looking, and Clara, the retired librarian, was back at table 7, her kale salad untouched as she watched Maya with a quiet intensity. "You holding up, dear?" Clara asked as Maya refilled her water. Maya managed a small smile, trying to, "Ms. Clara, it's a lot." Clara nodded, her silver hair catching the light. "I saw the video this morning. My daughter sent it to me. You know what I told her?" I said, "That's what strength looks like, not shouting, just standing." Maya's throat tightened. "I wasn't trying to be strong. I was just tired." "Sometimes that's where strength comes from," Clara said, her voice soft but firm. "You don't have to want the spotlight for it to find you." Maya didn't know what to say. She nodded, murmured a thank you, and moved on to her next table. But Clara's words stuck like a pebble in her shoe. She couldn't shake loose. She didn't want to be a symbol or a story. She wanted to be Maya Zoe's mom, a student scraping by, a server who knew how to handle a busy night. But the video had changed that, turning her into something else, something bigger than she'd ever asked for. By mid-afternoon, Marcus, the manager, called her into the office. The small room smelled of coffee and printer ink, with schedules pinned to a corkboard and a stack of invoices on the desk. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "We've got a situation," he said, his tone matter of fact. "3 news outlets called this morning. Channel 13's outside, and 2 others want interviews. Plus, someone started a GoFundMe in your name." Maya blinked, her hands still in her apron pockets. "A what?" "A crowdfunding thing," Marcus said, turning his laptop toward her. The screen showed a page titled "Support Maya's Future," with a still from the video as the header image. The description read, "For the Asheville server who stood up to arrogance with grace. Let's help her achieve her dreams." It had raised $15,000 in less than 12 hours. Maya stared at the screen, her mouth dry. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," Marcus said, "but it's happening. People are talking, Maya. Not just here, everywhere. X, TikTok, Reddit. You're trending." She shook her head, stepping back. "I don't want to trend. I want to work." Marcus nodded, his expression unreadable. "I get it. But this isn't going away anytime soon. You need to decide how you want to handle it." "Am I supposed to handle it?" she asked, her voice sharper than she intended. "I didn't sign up for this. I just said what I said because he wouldn't stop. And that's why it's resonating." Marcus said, "People see themselves in you. They see someone standing up when it's hard." Maya didn't respond. She looked at the floor, her sneakers scuffed and worn, and thought of Zoe, asleep on the couch last night with her math workbook. She thought of her sociology paper, still unwritten, and the tuition payment due in 2 weeks. The money from the GoFundMe could change things, pay for Zoe's school supplies, cover her classes, maybe even let her cut back on shifts. But it felt wrong, like accepting a prize for something she hadn't meant to do. "I'll think about it," she said finally, turning toward the door. "One more thing," Marcus said, stopping her. "The guy from last night, Ethan Caldwell, his PR team reached out. They're issuing a statement this afternoon." Maya's stomach dropped. "What kind of statement?" "An apology, supposedly," Marcus said. "But you know how these things go. It's probably damage control." She nodded, her jaw tight. "Thanks for the heads up." Back in the dining room, the crowd hadn't let up. Maya threw herself into her work, taking orders with a smile, refilling drinks, clearing plates. But the news van outside was a constant reminder of the storm brewing beyond the restaurant's walls. During a brief lull, she slipped into the break room to check her phone. The notifications were overwhelming, hundreds of comments, DMS, tags. She opened X and saw the video had been reposted thousands of times, with hashtags like #AshevilleQueen and #Dignity under fire. One post, from a local activist, read, "Maya Jackson didn't just shut down a bully, she showed us what power looks like when it's quiet." Another, from a server in Raleigh, said, "This is for every time we've had to smile through disrespect. Thank you, Maya." She locked her phone, her hands shaking slightly. It was too much, too fast, too loud. She wanted to call Tasha, to hear her friend's voice cut through the noise. But there wasn't time. The lunch rush was still in full swing, and her tables needed her dot. As the afternoon faded into evening, the restaurant's energy shifted. The tourists gave way to locals, the dining room filling with familiar faces, musicians, small business owners who called Asheville home. Maya was clearing a table when a woman in her 40s, with a nose ring and a flannel shirt, stopped her. "You're Maya, right?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Maya nodded, bracing herself. Yeah, that's me. I just wanted to say thank you, the woman said. I saw the video. I'm a teacher, and I showed it to my students today. We talked about what it means to stand up without losing yourself. You gave them something real. Maya's chest tightened. I don't know what to say. Thank you. The woman smiled. You don't have to say anything. Just keep being you. It wasn't the first time someone had said that today, but it hit differently each time. Maya nodded, murmuring another thank you, and moved on. But the encounters kept coming. A young man at the bar slipped her a note with his tip. You're an inspiration. A couple at table 10, who'd driven from Greenville after seeing the video, asked if they could take a selfie with her. She declined politely, saying, I'm just here to serve your food. But they left a $100 tip anyway by the time her shift ended. Maya was exhausted not just physically, but in a deeper, bone-deep way. She untied her apron, counted her tips, another record-breaking night, and slipped out the employee exit into the alley. The cool night air was a relief, the quiet a balm after the chaos of the day. Javier was there again, sitting on a crate, scrolling through his phone. You're still famous, he said without looking up, a grin in his voice. Maya leaned against the wall, crossing her arms, not by choice. He glanced at her, his expression softening. You see Caldwell's apology yet? She shook her head. Didn't have time. Javier handed her his phone. The screen showed a press release from Ethan Caldwell's company, a Silicon Valley venture capital firm. It was short and polished. Mr. Caldwell deeply regrets his behavior at Harvest and Hearth on Friday evening. His comments were inappropriate and do not reflect his values. He is committed to learning from this experience and has enrolled in inclusivity training. Maya handed the phone back, her expression blank. Sounds like a lawyer wrote it. Yep, Javier said, pocketing the phone. Comments aren't buying it either. People are calling it a PR stunt. She nodded, unsurprised. Men like Ethan didn't apologize because they were sorry, they apologized because they got caught. She'd seen it before, in smaller ways. Customers who snapped at her, then left a big tip to ease their guilt. Bosses who made promises they never kept. This was just louder, with a bigger audience. You think he means it? Javier asked, lighting another cigarette. Maya shrugged. Doesn't matter if he means it, matters what he does. Javier exhaled a cloud of smoke, nodding. Fair point. They stood in silence for a moment. The alley quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional clatter from the kitchen. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out reluctantly. A text from Tasha. Check your email. Someone wants to fly you out for an interview. Call me. Maya sighed, pocketing the phone without responding. She wasn't ready to deal with that, not tonight. She said goodnight to Javier and walked to her car, the stars above Asheville bright against the dark sky. As she drove home, the city's lights blurred past, and she let herself sink into the quiet, the radio off, her thoughts loud enough to fill the space. At home, Zoe was awake, curled up on the couch with a bowl of popcorn, watching a cartoon. Denise, Maya's mother, was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for tomorrow's stew. Maya dropped her keys on the counter and sank into a chair, her body heavy. You look like you ran a marathon, Denise said, glancing over. Feels like it, Maya said, rubbing her temples. Zoe looked up from the couch. Mom, are you famous? Maya laughed, the sound short but real. No, baby, just a little loud on the internet. Tasha says you're a superhero, Zoe said, her eyes wide. Tasha's exaggerating, Maya said, but she smiled. Go, brush your teeth, it's late. Zoe groaned but obeyed, dragging her feet toward the bathroom. Denise set down her knife and leaned against the counter, her eyes on Maya. You gonna tell me what's going on, or do I have to hear it from Tasha? Maya sighed, pulling out her phone. She opened X and showed her mother the video, now with over 50,000 likes. Denise watched in silence, her expression unreadable. When it ended, she handed the phone back. You said what needed saying, Denise said, but you know this won't just go away. I know, Maya said, her voice quiet. I just don't know what to do with it. Denise nodded, her gaze steady. You don't have to figure it out tonight. But you've got a voice now. Whether you wanted it or not, use it wisely. Maya didn't respond. She sipped the tea her mother had left on the counter, the warmth grounding her. Later, as she lay in bed, the weight of the day pressed against her. She thought of Clara's words, of the GoFundMe, of Ethan's hollow apology. She thought of Zoe, asleep in the next room, and the life she was trying to build for her. The spotlight was on her now, but she didn't know if she wanted to step into it or if she could step away. The Sunday brunch shift at Harvest and Hearth was always a beast, families piling in for buttermilk pancakes, hipsters sipping mimosas, and regulars like Clara staking out their usual tables for a quieter meal. But this Sunday, the restaurant felt different, like the air itself was charged with something unspoken. Maya Jackson tied her apron with the same practiced knot, her sneakers squeaking against the polished wood floor as she prepped her section. The news van was gone from the street, replaced by a steady stream of new faces, diners who'd seen the viral video, who'd read the posts on X, who'd come to see the server who'd shut down a billionaire with a single sentence. Maya felt their eyes, not hostile but heavy, like a weight she hadn't asked to carry. Her phone, tucked in her locker, had been off since last night. She'd muted every app, unable to keep up with the flood of notifications, DMs from strangers, interview requests from news outlets, even a message from a podcast producer offering to fly her to New York for a segment. The GoFundMe support Maya's future had climbed past $30,000, the number so surreal she couldn't look at it without feeling dizzy. She hadn't touched the money, hadn't even logged into the account. It didn't feel real, like it belonged to someone else. Someone who wasn't just trying to make it through a shift and get home to her daughter. Lila was behind the bar, slicing oranges for garnishes, when Maya passed by with a tray of coffee mugs. "You see the latest?" Lila asked, her voice low but teasing. "Your video's on TikTok now. Someone added a gospel choir soundtrack. It's fire." Maya shook her head, setting the mugs down. "I'm not watching it." "You should," Lila said, grinning. "You're a whole movement now. Hashtag Ash got like 10,000 posts." Maya didn't smile back. "I just want to do my job, Lila." Lila's grin softened. "I know, but you did more than that, whether you meant to or not." Maya didn't respond. She grabbed a pitcher of water and moved to her section, where the tables were filling fast. The brunch crowd was loud, kids giggling, glasses clinking, the acoustic duo in the corner strumming a cover of Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind. But beneath the noise, there was a hum of curiosity. A young woman at table 3 whispered to her friend, "Is that her?" An older man at table 5 asked for a selfie, which Maya politely declined, and Clara, at her usual table 7, watched her with that same quiet intensity, her kale salad untouched. "You're handling this better than I would," Clara said as Maya refilled her water. "All these eyes on you." Maya managed a small smile. "Doesn't feel like handling it, Miss Clara. Feels like surviving it." Clara nodded, her silver hair catching the light. "Surviving's a kind of strength, don't forget that." The words stayed with Maya as she moved through her section, taking orders, clearing plates, refilling drinks. But the weight of the attention was inescapable. A family at table 4 left a $50 tip with a note, "For your grace." A couple at table 6 slipped her a card with a handwritten message, "You inspired us to speak up at work." And a teenage girl, barely older than Zoe, stopped her near the bar to say, "I saw your video. I'm gonna be like you when I grow up, not letting anyone make me feel small." Maya's throat tightened. "You don't need to be like me," she said softly. "Just be you, and don't let anyone take that away." The girl beamed, clutching her phone like it held a treasure. Maya turned away, her chest heavy with something she couldn't name. She didn't want to be a role model or a hashtag. She wanted to be Maya Zoe's mom, a student with a sociology paper due, a server who knew how to navigate a busy night. But the world had other ideas. Midway through the shift, Marcus called her into the office again. The small room was cluttered, as always, with schedules pinned to the corkboard and a half-empty coffee mug on the desk. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. "We've got a new development," he said. "Caldwell's people sent a letter. It came this morning, addressed to you." Maya's stomach dropped. "What kind of letter?" Marcus handed her an envelope, plain white with her name typed neatly across the front. Maya Jackson. No title, no Ms., just her name. She opened it slowly, pulling out a single sheet of cream-colored paper, the kind that felt expensive, like it came from an office with mahogany desks and framed diplomas. The letter was from a Gregory Alton, legal representative for Ethan Caldwell. It read, "Dear Miss Jackson, I am writing on behalf of Mr. Ethan Caldwell, following the events of Friday evening at Harvest and Hearth. Mr. Caldwell wishes to extend his sincerest apologies for his behavior, both privately and, if you agree, publicly. He acknowledges that his actions were inappropriate and disrespectful. He is prepared to meet in person to discuss this matter or to provide a written statement, depending on your preference. This message is offered in good faith, with full respect for your dignity and autonomy in choosing how to proceed. No legal action is being pursued, nor is any expected. Mr. Caldwell simply wishes to make amends. Sincerely, Gregory Alton. Maya stared at the letter, her hands steady but her mind racing. The words were polished, careful, like they'd been scrubbed clean by a team of lawyers. She folded the paper and slipped it back into the envelope, her expression blank. "What do you think?" Marcus asked, watching her closely. "Sounds like damage control," she said, her voice flat. "He's not sorry. He's sorry he got caught." Marcus nodded, unsurprised. "That's what I figured. You don't have to respond, you know. You don't owe him anything." "I know," Maya said, but the letter felt heavy in her hand, like it carried more than words. She tucked it into her apron pocket and headed back to the dining room, her steps slower now. The idea of Ethan Caldwell apologizing privately or publicly felt hollow, like a performance put on for the cameras. She didn't want his regret. She wanted the moment back, the one where she'd just been a server doing her job. Not a viral sensation. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of orders and tips, each one more generous than the last. By the time Maya clocked out, her apron was heavy with cash and notes, small tokens of gratitude from diners who'd seen the video or heard the story. She counted her tips in the break room, the numbers adding up to more than she'd made in a week. It was enough for Zoe's school shoes, her tuition payment, maybe even a little extra for the electric bill. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a debt, one she hadn't asked for and didn't know how to repay. She slipped out the employee exit into the alley, the October air cool against her skin. Javier was there, as usual, sitting on a crate with a cigarette in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked up as she approached, a grin spreading across his face. "You're still trending," he said, holding up his phone. "GoFundMe's at $40,000 now. People are wild for you." Maya leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. "I didn't ask for their money." "I know," Javier said, exhaling a cloud of smoke, "but they're giving it anyway. You gonna take it?" She didn't answer right away. The money could change things. Pay for her classes, give Zoe a better winter coat, maybe even let her cut back on shifts so she could spend more time studying. But it felt like accepting a role she hadn't auditioned for, like stepping into a story someone else had written. "I don't know," she said finally. "Feels like I'm selling something I didn't mean to." Javier nodded, his grin fading. "Fair, but you know what's wild? I heard some servers at other spots are talking about you. Like you gave them permission to stand up for themselves. That's not nothing." Maya looked at him, her expression softening. "I wasn't trying to give anyone permission. I was just done." "Sometimes that's enough," Javier said, stubbing out his cigarette. "You didn't yell, didn't curse, didn't throw a drink. You just said what you said, and it hit. That's power, Maya." She didn't respond. She pushed off the wall and headed for her car, the letter from Ethan's lawyer still in her apron pocket. As she drove home, the streets of Asheville glowed with the soft light of street lamps, the city alive with its usual weekend hum. But Maya felt disconnected, like she was watching it all through a window. Her phone buzzed in her bag, and she ignored it, knowing it was probably Tasha or another notification she wasn't ready to face. At home, Zoe was in the living room, sprawled on the couch with her math workbook open. Denise was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chili, the smell filling the small apartment with warmth. Maya dropped her keys on the counter and sank into a chair, her body heavy with exhaustion. "You look like you've been through it," Denise said, glancing over. "Something like that," Maya said, rubbing her eyes. Zoe looked up from her workbook. "Mom, Tasha says you're gonna be on TV." Maya sighed, managing a small smile. "Tasha's talking nonsense, baby. Go finish your homework." Zoe grinned, undeterred. "She says you're a hero." Denise snorted from the kitchen. "Tasha's always been dramatic." Maya laughed, the sound short but real. She pulled the letter from her apron and set it on the counter, its presence like a third person in the room. Denise glanced at it, her brow furrowing. "What's that?" she asked. "Caldwell's apology," Maya said, her voice flat, or his lawyer's version of one. Denise set down her spoon and picked up the letter, reading it in silence. When she finished, she handed it back, her expression unreadable. "What do you think?" "Doesn't feel like an apology," Maya said. Feels like a script. Denise nodded. Men like that don't say sorry unless they have to. But you don't have to give him anything back. I know, Maya said, but the letter gnawed at her. She didn't want to meet Ethan Caldwell, didn't want to hear his polished words or see his face again, but the idea of ignoring it felt incomplete, like leaving a sentence unfinished. That night, after Zoe was asleep, Maya sat on the couch, with her laptop, the GoFundMe page open. The total had climbed to $45,000, with donations from strangers across the country, some as small as $5, others as large as $500. The comments were overwhelming. You're an inspiration. Thank you for showing us how to stand tall. Use this to chase your dreams. She scrolled through them, her chest tight, until one caught her eye. A message from a server in Atlanta, who wrote, "I've been disrespected on the job for years. Your video made me realize I don't have to take it with a smile. Thank you." Maya closed the laptop, her hands shaking slightly. She didn't want to be a symbol, but she couldn't deny the impact. Her words, those few seconds in a busy restaurant, had rippled outward, touching people she'd never meet. It was humbling, terrifying, and something else she couldn't name. The next morning, Monday, brought a new wave of attention. Maya arrived at Harvest and Hearth to find a bouquet of flowers waiting in the break room, with a card that read, "For standing up without stepping down." There was no name, just a local florist's logo. She set the flowers on a shelf, unsure what to do with them. The restaurant was quieter than the weekend, but the curious diners still came, their phones ready, their whispers trailing her like shadows. During a lull, Marcus pulled her aside again. "You've got a visitor," he said, nodding toward the front. "Some guy in a suit. Says he's here to deliver a statement from Caldwell." Maya's stomach clenched. She followed Marcus to the host stand, where a man in his 50s stood, gray suit, no tie, glasses sliding down his nose. He looked out of place among the casual brunch crowd, his posture stiff but polite. "Miss Jackson," he said, extending a hand, "I'm Gregory Alton, Mr. Caldwell's representative." Maya shook his hand, her grip firm but guarded. "I got your letter. I said I wasn't interested." "I understand," Alton said, his voice calm. "I'm not here to pressure you. Mr. Caldwell asked me to deliver this in person." He handed her a sealed envelope, no strings attached. "He's making a donation to a community training center in West Asheville, full tuition for 5 students, in your name. He wanted you to know." Maya stared at the envelope, her fingers hovering over it. "Why?" Alton adjusted his glasses. He said your words made him realize something. That silence isn't always weakness, it's strength. He's hoping this is a step toward accountability. She didn't respond right away. The envelope felt heavy, like the letter before it, but different. She opened it slowly, scanning the single page inside. It confirmed the donation, $50,000 to a local program that trained young adults for trade jobs. Her name was listed as the honoree, but there was no mention of a meeting or a public statement. "Tell him this isn't about redemption," she said finally, her voice steady. "It's about responsibility." Alton nodded. "He knows. He's working on it." She watched him leave, the envelope still in her hand. It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was something. A step, maybe, toward something bigger than Ethan Caldwell's ego. She tucked the envelope into her apron and went back to work, her mind buzzing with questions she wasn't ready to answer. That evening, after her shift, Maya drove to Miller's Grill, a no-frills diner on the edge of town where she and Tasha often met. The place was quiet, with plastic menus and lemon slices in every glass of water. Tasha was already there, in their usual corner booth, scrolling through her phone. "You're late," Tasha said, looking up with a grin. "Too busy, being famous." Maya slid into the booth, rolling her eyes. "Not you two." Tasha laughed, pushing a plate of fries across the table. "Girl, you broke the internet. You see the GoFundMe? It's at $50,000 now." Maya sighed, grabbing a fry. "I don't know what to do with that." "Take it," Tasha said, her tone serious now. "You've been killing yourself, working doubles, going to school, raising Zoe. That money's for you, not some idea of you." "It doesn't feel right," Maya said, her voice low. "I didn't do this to go viral." "I know," Tasha said, leaning forward. "But you did it, and people saw something real in you. That's why it's hitting like this." Maya didn't respond. She thought of the letter, the donation, the flowers, the notes from strangers. She thought of Zoe, who'd asked if she was a superhero, and Denise, who'd told her to use her voice wisely. The world was watching, but she didn't know what. She wanted to say, "What about Caldwell's letter?" Tasha asked, reading her mind. "You gonna meet him?" Maya shook her head. "No, I don't need to see him again. This isn't about him." Tasha nodded, her eyes soft. "Then what is it about?" Maya paused, the question hanging between them. "It's about showing Zoe you don't have to bow to anyone, and maybe showing myself that, too." Tasha smiled. "That's my girl." They sat in silence for a moment, the diner's hum a comforting backdrop. Maya didn't have all the answers, but for the first time, she felt the shape of them, quiet, steady, like a path she was just beginning to walk. The week after the incident at Harvest and Hearth passed like a fever dream, each day blurring into the next, with a rhythm Maya Jackson couldn't quite catch. The viral video of her confrontation with Ethan Caldwell had spread further than she'd imagined, ricocheting across platforms X, TikTok, Instagram, even a brief segment on a national morning show. The GoFundMe support Maya's future had surged past $70,000. With donations pouring in from strangers who saw in her a mirror of their own struggles. The restaurant remained a magnet for curious diners, some leaving tips folded with notes of gratitude, others snapping discreet photos when they thought she wasn't looking. Maya moved through it all with the same steady grace she'd always had, but inside, she felt like a tightrope walker, one misstep from falling into a spotlight she hadn't chosen. By Wednesday, the noise had started to quiet. At least online, the internet had moved on to its next obsession, a celebrity scandal, a political gaffe, but the impact lingered in Asheville. Harvest and Hearth was still packed, the phone ringing with reservation requests, and Maya's shifts were a balancing act of serving tables and dodging questions about that night. She'd turned off her phone's notifications, letting Tasha filter the flood of messages and interview requests. The flowers from the anonymous sender still sat in the break room, their petals wilting, but their presence a reminder of the moment that had changed everything. That afternoon, during a rare lull in the lunch rush, Maya found herself in the alley behind the restaurant, leaning against the wall with a bottle of water in hand. The October air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke. Javier wasn't there today, and the quiet was a relief, a chance to breathe without eyes on her. She pulled the envelope from Ethan Caldwell's representative out of her apron pocket, its edges worn from being handled. The donation to the West Asheville Training Center, $50,000, 5 full scholarships in her name, felt like a weight she couldn't set down. She hadn't responded beyond her message through Gregory Alton. "This isn't about redemption, it's about responsibility." But the gesture gnawed at her, not because she doubted its sincerity, but because it tied her to Ethan in a way she didn't want. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she glanced at it reluctantly. A text from Marcus, the manager, community center in West Asheville, called. "They want you to speak to their youth group Friday. No pressure, but they said it'd mean a lot. Let me know." Maya sighed, pocketing the phone. She didn't want to speak, didn't want to stand in front of a room and be the Asheville queen or whatever hashtag the internet had pinned to her. But the training center was the one Ethan's donation had funded, and the thought of those kids, young adults like her, trying to carve out a future, tugged at her. She thought of Zoe, who'd asked if she was a superhero, and Denise, who'd told her to use her voice wisely. Maybe this was what that meant, not a spotlight, but a moment to share something real. She went back inside, the restaurant's warmth enveloping her. Clara was at table 7, as always, her kale salad half-eaten, a book open beside her plate. She looked up as Maya approached with a water pitcher. "You're thinking about something heavy," Clara said, her voice gentle but direct. Maya smiled, refilling her glass. "You always see right through me, Ms. Clara." "It's a gift," Clara said, her eyes crinkling. "What's on your mind?" Maya hesitated, then set the pitcher down. "They want me to talk at a community center, to some kids. I don't know if I'm the right person for that." Clara closed her book, giving Maya her full attention. "Why not?" "I'm not a speaker," Maya said, her voice low. "I'm not a hero. I just said what I said because I was tired of being talked down to." "And that's exactly why you're the right person," Clara said. "Those kids don't need a hero. They need someone who's been where they are, who knows what it's like to stand up when it's hard." Maya didn't respond right away. She thought of her own teenage years, working odd jobs to help her mom, dodging the weight of other people's assumptions. She thought of Zoe, growing up in a world that would try to define her before she could define herself. "Maybe," she said finally, "I'll think about it." Clara nodded, her expression warm. "You'll know what to do, Maya. You always do." The rest of the shift passed in a haze of orders and tips, each one carrying a quiet acknowledgement of what she'd done. A woman at table 5 left a note. "Your strength is contagious." A man at the bar slipped her $20 with a whispered, "Keep shining." Maya tucked each one away, not sure what to do with the gratitude but feeling its weight all the same. That evening, she sat with Tasha at Miller's Grill, their corner booth, a sanctuary from the chaos. Tasha was scrolling through her phone, reading out comments from the latest repost of the video. "This one says, Maya Jackson for president," she said, laughing. "And this one's from a teacher in Ohio who wants to show it to her class." Maya sipped her iced tea, shaking her head. "They're making it bigger than it is." "No, they're not," Tasha said, setting her phone down. "You said something real, Maya. People don't hear that every day. That's why it's sticking." Maya looked down at her plate, a half-eaten burger untouched. "They asked me to speak at a community center. To some teens." Tasha's eyes lit up. "You gonna do it?" "I don't know," Maya said, her voice quiet. "What am I supposed to say? Hey kids, stand up to billionaires." Tasha leaned forward, her tone serious. "You tell them what you learned. That you don't have to shout to be heard. That your worth isn't what someone else says it is. You tell them what you'd tell Zoe." Maya's chest tightened at the mention of her daughter. She thought of Zoe's wide eyes, her math workbook, her question about superheroes. "Maybe," she said. "I just don't want to be something I'm not." "You're not," Tasha said. "You're Maya." Enough. The conversation lingered with Maya as she drove home, the city's lights blurring past. She thought of the GoFundMe, the donation, the letter from Ethan's lawyer. She thought of Clara's words, Tasha's encouragement, and the kids at the community center, waiting for something she wasn't sure she could give. By the time she climbed into bed, she'd made a decision, not a loud one, but a quiet one, like the moment she'd faced Ethan Caldwell. Friday afternoon, Maya stood in the parking lot of the West Asheville Community Center, a low brick building with murals of mountains and rivers painted on its walls. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the asphalt, and the air carried the first chill of fall. She wore jeans and a simple black sweater, her hair loose for once, framing her face. Her hands were steady, but her stomach churned with nerves. She'd told Marcus she'd do the talk, but standing here now, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. Inside, the center buzzed with activity, kids playing basketball in the gym, volunteers setting up tables for an art class. A woman in her 30s, with a warm smile and a clipboard, greeted Maya at the door. "You must be Maya," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Keisha, the program director. We're so grateful you're here." Maya shook her hand, her smile tentative. "I'm not sure what I'm supposed to say, but I'll try." Keisha laughed, leading her down a hallway. "Just be yourself. These kids have seen the video. They already look up to you." The meeting room was small, with folding chairs arranged in a semicircle. About 20 teens sat waiting, some in hoodies, others in jeans and sneakers, a few scrolling their phones. They ranged in age from 14 to 18, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Maya stood at the front, her hands clasped, feeling like she was back in high school giving a presentation she hadn't prepared for. Keisha introduced her, her voice bright. "Y'all know why we're here. This is Maya Jackson, the woman who showed the world what it means to stand up with dignity. Let's give her a warm welcome." A few kids clapped, others nodded. One boy in the back muttered, "She's the one from the video," to his friend. Maya took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the room. She didn't have a speech, no notes, just the truth she'd carried since that night. "Hey, y'all," she said, her voice steady but soft. "Maya, I'm not a speaker or a celebrity. I'm a mom, a student, and a server at a restaurant downtown. A couple weeks ago, something happened at my job, and it got recorded. I'm guessing you've seen it." A few heads nodded, a girl in the front row smiling. Maya continued, her words coming easier now. "Most of the time, you don't get to control how people see you. They'll look at your clothes, your job, your skin, your shoes, before they ever look at your eyes. And you won't always get to fix that. But you can control what you say and how you say it. And sometimes, that's louder than shouting." The room was quiet now, the phones forgotten. Maya's voice grew stronger, not louder, but clearer, like a bell ringing in a still room. "I wasn't brave because I wanted to be. I was tired of being talked down to, tired of being expected to smile through it, and one day, I just didn't." A girl in the front row raised her hand, her braids swinging. What happened after you said that line? The one about him showing who he is. Maya smiled, the memory sharp. I got silence. The kind you can feel, the kind that makes a man with all the money in the world realize he can't buy respect. A few kids laughed, a boy in the back muttering, "That's cold." Maya's smile widened, but her tone stayed serious. It wasn't about him, though. It was about me, about knowing my worth even when someone tried to take it. And it was about everyone else in that room, seeing what happens when you don't bow. The teens were listening now, their skepticism replaced by something soft, direct, maybe, or hope. Maya went on, sharing pieces of her story, not the viral moment, but the quieter ones, working doubles to pay for school, raising Zoe, learning to stand tall, even when her legs shook. She didn't talk about the GoFundMe or ETH donation. Those were details, not the heart of it. If you remember anything from this, she said, her eyes moving across the room, don't remember my job or the guy I was talking to or what I wore. Remember this. Your calm is your strength. Your quiet is your fight. Your dignity is your line, and no one gets to cross it without your permission. The room was silent for a moment. Then the girl in the front row started clapping. Others joined, not a roar, but a steady, earnest applause. Keisha stepped forward, beaming, "Thank you, Maya. That was powerful." Maya nodded, her throat tight. She didn't feel powerful, she felt raw, exposed, but also grounded, like she'd found her footing on a path she hadn't seen before. The kids came up afterward, some asking questions, others just wanting to say thanks. A boy in a hoodie told her, "I got a boss who's like that guy. I'm gonna remember what you said." A girl with glasses said, "You're like my mom. She doesn't take nothing from nobody." Maya listened, smiled, nodded, her heart full but heavy. When the room emptied, Keisha walked her out, her clipboard tucked under her arm. "You did something special in there," Keisha said. "Those kids don't open up easy, but they heard you." "I hope so," Maya said, her voice soft. "I just wanted to be real with them." "You were," Keisha said, "and that's what they needed." Maya stepped into the parking lot. The sun now gone, the sky a deep indigo streaked with clouds. She sat on the hood of her car, the metal cooled beneath her, and looked up at the stars. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, but she ignored it, letting the quiet wrap around her. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't reacting to the world, she was choosing her place in it, not as a hashtag or a hero, but as Maya, a woman who'd spoken her truth and refused to let it be twisted. Back home, Zoe was asleep, her math workbook open on the coffee table. Denise was in the kitchen, reading a newspaper, the letter from Ethan's lawyer still on the counter where Maya had left it. She looked up as Maya dropped her keys. "How'd it go?" Denise asked, her eyes sharp. Maya sank into a chair, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It went okay. I think I said what I needed to." Denise nodded, setting the newspaper down. "You find your voice yet?" Maya thought about the teens, their faces, their questions. She thought about the silence in the restaurant, the weight of Ethan's words, and the strength she'd found to answer them. "I'm getting there," she said. The next morning, Maya checked the GoFundMe for the first time in days. It had reached $80,000, with a new wave of donations after a local news outlet ran a story about her talk at the community center. She sat with the number, letting it sink in. It wasn't just money, it was trust, a belief in her that she was still learning to carry. She decided to accept it, not for herself, but for Zoe, for her education, for the life they were building together. She'd use part of it to fund a scholarship at the community center, a way to pay forward the support she'd received. Ethan Caldwell's name faded from the headlines, his PR apology drowned out by the noise of the internet. But his donation to the training center had been processed. And Maya heard through Keisha that the first students had enrolled, their tuition covered in her name. She didn't reach out to him, didn't need to. His actions were his own now, separate from her story. Weeks later, on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Maya was wiping down tables at Harvest and Hearth when a woman approached her. She was in her 60s, with kind eyes and a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck. "You're Maya, aren't you?" she asked. Maya nodded, bracing herself for another photo request or note. "Yes, ma'am. I'm a retired teacher," the woman said, her voice steady. "I saw your video, and I showed it to my old colleagues. We talked about what it means to speak truth without losing your peace. I just wanted to say thank you for showing us how that's done." Maya's throat tightened. "Thank you, ma'am. That means a lot." The woman smiled. Keep standing, even when your legs shake. The words stayed with Maya long after the woman left. They echoed Clara's advice, Tasha's encouragement, Denise's quiet wisdom. They were a reminder that her strength wasn't in the viral moment, but in the choices she made every day to show up, to speak, to refuse to be diminished. That evening, after her shift, Maya walked out into the alley behind the restaurant. The air was cooler now, the first hint of winter on the horizon. She stood there for a moment, her breath visible in the night air, and looked up at the sky. The stars were bright, indifferent, but they felt like company, like witnesses to a truth she was still learning to hold. Thought her phone buzzed. A text from Tasha. You see the new hashtag? Hashtags stand like Maya. You're a legend. Maya smiled, pocketing the phone without responding. She didn't need to. The legend wasn't in the hashtag, or the video, or the money. It was in the quiet, in the way she'd stood her ground, not just for herself, but for Zoe, for the kids at the community center, for every server who'd ever swallowed disrespect with a smile. It was in the way she'd chosen dignity over dishonor, not because it was easy, but because it was hers. She walked to her car, the alley silent except for the soft crunch of gravel under her sneakers. The world would keep turning, with its noise and its spotlights. But Maya knew something now. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to fight fire with fire. Your stillness, your clarity, can be the loudest voice in the room. And when the moment comes, you speak like it matters, stand like you belong, and carry respect like it's woven into your bones, because it is.